Welcome to On the Corner of Main Street, presented by Plaza Hotel and Casino in downtown Las Vegas. Here is Plaza CEO Jonathan Jossel, Gary Vickery, and I'm your host, Lisa Melmed. Welcome to On the Corner of Main Street. Hello, Gary. Hello, Jonathan. How's it going?
It's a nice December afternoon here in downtown Las Vegas, so can't complain.
Doing good, Lise. We got a difficult time here at the moment, but we're carrying on and looking towards at least some signs of light at the end of the tunnel. I think the vaccine's coming, as we will talk about, and hopefully we're going to get there. But of course, we're currently operating in the new limited restrictions that the governor put upon us 2 weeks ago. The virus numbers have definitely spiked more than at any point during the pandemic at this point.
Right.
So can't blame him necessarily, but I think there's a fine balance. And right now we find ourselves at 25% occupancy in the restaurants. You have to make a reservation. We're still doing the temperature checks. We're still doing mandatory masks in all places. So there's definitely been effects of that. We've definitely seen a slowdown from that. But it's the world we're living in.
Not to mention December is usually, at this time of the month, well, usually it's the end of the rodeo, and then it starts to slow down right before the holidays. But this year,
I got to tell you, Gary, do we realize now how much we miss the Cowboys? I mean, rodeo for Vegas is probably the most impactful event of the year. I mean, there's some big ones that during the course of the year, whether it's CES or ConExpo, which comes every 3 years, or this year we haven't had anything. Well, we had CES earlier in the year, but whether you talk about EDC and some other bigger gatherings, I got to tell you, the rodeo, which is 10 days, there's nothing like it. And I'm looking forward to 2021 because we're going to do the rodeo bigger and better than ever this next year. That's for sure.
Yeah, usually this weekend we're looking at, ending NFR, and then we have a super bingo that's either before or after the rodeo.
That was the biggest fallout from the governor's new restrictions. We had to cancel Super Bingo last week, or this week, that we're currently in, which really hurts us. Being the only bingo game downtown, having 650 players come here for Super Bingo, that was the number we did in October. Normally we do 1,000, but in October we did 650. We had no cases. Everyone had their temperature taken. Everyone had masks on. Everyone was socially distant. We controlled the groups when they went to the bathroom. We didn't take breaks so that there wasn't large gatherings. We felt like we did a great job in October, and we were disappointed that we weren't able to do it again in December because we did it safely.
Right, and I think everybody had a great experience. That's the main thing, right, is to make sure that everybody has that experience, and I think we delivered in October.
You still want to give them a good experience. The challenge, of course, is even if they maybe weren't having a great experience, they were still just happy to be out of their houses and playing bingo again, right? They hadn't played bingo since February. It was just time to get going, and I think that was something that they were really looking forward to.
I mean, I can't wait for this pandemic to be behind us and us to get back to normal.
Well, the next big thing is New Year's Eve, right? And the Strip's canceled fireworks. Mm-hmm. We made a decision today that we are going to go ahead with our fireworks. We're not expecting a large gathering for the viewing of it. Of course, Fremont Street, I'm sure will be busy, maybe not as busy as prior years, but it's an outdoor mall, and people are going to come out whether there's restrictions or not. I don't know how it's going to work on Fremont Street exactly, but we will do our fireworks for the community, for television, and because it's what we do every year. Again, we're not expecting a large crowd, but we do think that continuing that tradition of it is, and hopefully we're bringing in a new year with better vibes and bring it in a bang because we need it.
Yes.
But
yeah, it's great for not only just downtown, these fireworks, but you can see it from all over the city. It just raises some hope and inspires some hope.
Yeah, and you got to imagine this year more than ever, people are going to be watching TV. So we know that by televising them, we'll get more eyeballs on the plaza, but also just people that are sitting at home want something to look at midnight, and at least they'll have our fireworks, which I'm not sure they're the only fireworks in the state, but they're definitely the only ones on a hotel in the city. So I'm looking forward to it.
We're the only fireworks show that matters.
Thank you, Gary.
So, what else are you guys looking forward to in 2021?
Well, I think it's just getting back to normal in some aspects, right? I mean, we want we want people here at the hotel. We want to have Our food and beverage programs reactivated to full capacity, and we want to bring back entertainment, bring back our comedy shows, different things like that. I think that's that'll bring Vegas back to normal.
Yeah, I mean, any gatherings, we now see the importance of conventions for Vegas and large gatherings, ice hockey games, fans, people, and in line with our guest coming up shortly, shows. We got to see shows, and shows have become an integral part of the Vegas experience. Nightclubs are basically shows now. Everyone stands there with their cameras filming the DJ. So they became shows anyway. But I mean, maybe they replace shows in some degrees, but they're an experience, right? You're not just going to a nightclub anymore. You're seeing people, girls dancing on the stage, confetti, and different animations on the screen. It's a whole experience. So I'm looking forward to gatherings of all sorts coming back. And I think our guest on the podcast today, I mean, he goes by the Impresario, right? Something pretty bold, but I think he's deserving of that title because he is a guy who's revolutionized the show industry in Las Vegas, and I think people were getting a little burnt out with Cirque. I mean, who doesn't love O and Mr. But they were a little more drawn out, and I think the way I describe them is when you go to a Cirque show, before the show they say, please make sure your cell phones are turned off. We don't allow photos or recording or anything. And when you go to one of Ross's shows, Absinthe, at Opium, Atomic Saloon, they say, please take out your phones, film whatever you want, share on social media. And that's the difference of a show today and a show that's a little bit more old school.
It's like rowdy and fun versus like sitting there
It's
quietly.
very interactive. In fact, it's so interactive, I think you've even interacted with them.
Yeah, I went to see Opium with my husband, and he was called on stage. I was shocked that he got called on stage, but he was doing this bit with this girl who was chewing her bubble gum and then takes out her gum and gives, like, stretches it out, gives him one side, gives another guy the other side, and they start playing jump rope with this girl's bubble gum that she's jumping over. It was so bizarre, so funny. I was filming the whole thing. And then it was even cool because afterwards we left and people were coming. We were like on our way to the parking garage and people were like, oh my God, like, are you guys in this show? Did you know about this? Like, they thought it was all pre-planned and it was totally just random. And I will never forget that. I'm sure my husband will never forget it.
Was that Opium?
Yes.
So, I mean, they have very COVID-unfriendly acts in some of these shows.
Yeah.
That particularly is COVID-unfriendly.
The thought of that now is...
you'd run a mile if someone said, touch my gum.
Yeah.
But like, they had one at Atomic Saloon where they would have pieces of spaghetti, and the act would eat from one end, and the person in the crowd would eat from the other end, and they would just meet in the middle, and it's very awkward. But the idea that would happen now is very far.
Or the banana bit when they're eating a banana and spitting it into each other's mouth.
That's Absinthe, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, that tells you he's pushing the envelope, but he's a pretty great guy, and I'm happy he's able to join us on the podcast today.
Let's jump in. Today we are joined by very special guest, the creator of Spiegelworld, the company that has created hit strip shows Absinthe, Opium, and Atomic Saloon show. Welcome, Ross Mollison, to On the Corner of Main Street.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic to be on the corner of Main Street, my favorite place to be.
You're a downtown guy, I hear.
I am a downtown guy. I just spent the last couple of months actually staying at Ferguson's, and I would run up every morning. I'd go for my jog. I'd run up Fremont and through the Fremont Street experience, past the plaza, to hang a left, go down under the railway bridge, up past Robin Leach Way, through Symphony Park there, and then back under the railway bridge, the other side.
So you know all about being on the corner of Main Street.
Oh yeah. It's amazing, and it's good to hear. I hear there's a new pizza place just opened up there. The guy, he used to be at the Porn Stars thing. He's really good. He's really good, and it's just great to see the revitalization of downtown. I'm an enormous fan of that.
You're really keeping your finger on the pulse, Ross. I know that. You send me a picture of downtown. If any lights are out or anything's not quite right, you send me a picture, or you say, look how busy it is down here. I get my updates from you, so that's pretty helpful. But I want to take it back a little bit because obviously you and I go quite a ways back, and you're in New York at the moment, right?
Yep.
How has the last 9 months been for you? I mean, what's been happening? And obviously you shut down the shows.
It's been a roller coaster ride of sometimes personal terror, sometimes business terror, sometimes elation. Very emotional time for everybody, I believe, and I think it's gonna be a lot to get over this for everybody. We're gonna have to work really hard, but as I say to my team, we've got to stay positive and test negative, and that's our motto. And we just got all our results back from Sunday night. We test everybody once a week, and we had 100% negatives on Sunday night, which is just the way we love it. And and we haven't always had that, but it's been really, really hard for everybody. And it's learning to understand what it was, as the scientists were learning to understand what it was, and then interpret that for our business. And did it mean we could open? And then working out a way to reopen safely and put your team back into the environment and back to work, which was it was 6 months work. It was an enormous undertaking, as it was for you, right? It's just hard to reboot these things.
And now you're closed down again. So why are you testing everybody if you're closed? Just for...
No, we're not closed. We're still open. We should be closed, but the governor reduced us to 50 people a show, and we said, well, we'll keep running at 50 people a show, but he said it's for 3 weeks, and we hope that he comes out and he looks at what we're doing and say, yeah, we could go back to what we were, which was socially separated, fully masked, fully tested, and under 250.
Oh, I apologize. I knew you were doing Absinthe, but I didn't know that Opium and Atomic Saloon are still open.
No, well, sorry, Opium and Atomic are closed, but Absinthe was open. That's the one. Like, we're fighting to keep that beachhead,
Right.
That was hard to make it back. It was hard to get on the beach there. And now we're on the beach. We want to go forward. We were about to announce we were reopening Atomic Saloon, and then the pause was put in for 3 weeks. We want to get back to getting Atomic open, and then ultimately get Opium open.
That's so you have arguably the 3 best shows in Vegas in Atomic Saloon, Opium, and Absinthe. I can say that as a neutral. I'm sure anybody else would recognize that. But how we had Myron Martin from the Smith Center on the podcast, and I'm trying to talk about the COVID stuff now, so we don't have to spend the whole time talking about COVID, because it's pretty tiring at this point, I'm sure, for you as well. But how is it that the Smith Center, Myron Martin, and Broadway in New York, and to another degree other shows in Vegas, they're not trying to get open, and you've figured out a way to make it work? How do you do it? Is it just you're so popular you can do it, or what's the secret sauce?
I mean, we were just determined to get open, and we ripped out all the seating out. We ripped the flooring out. We rebuilt the flooring. We rebuilt the seating. We put in a cabaret setup, and we cut deals with everybody. We made a business. We reworked the business model, and we came up with a way that we could make it work at 153 seats. And so that was that's why we did Absinthe, because we could actually strip that out. It was harder to do Atomic and Opium because those theaters are far smaller. But that's why we started with Absinthe.
How did you end up with Spiegelworld?
Well, I've always been involved in circus, and I worked with Cirque du Soleil for 10 years. I worked with the Moscow Circus. I worked with Circus Oz, a great Australian circus company. Ever since I was a kid, I loved circus. I used to live next door to people who knew everybody who performed in the circus. That's how I became in love with it. And, as growing up, I did musicals and plays and was a performer. But I always loved producing. And the greatest thing you can produce is circus. That is the most fun, a circus. It's what I call it, a producer medium. It's really where, if you're producing a musical, really, Andrew Lloyd Webber's writing the book and the music. You turn up and, you can go to the casting or whatever, but really it's his vision of what happens, or, her vision of whatever happens, whoever the creators are. But in circus, the producer can have a far greater role. And that's why I've always loved that and found it to be so much fun.
What are your job duties and what are your roles?
Well, my job is called, Impresario Extraordinaire. To live up to that title, I have to create extraordinary works of entertainment. And if I fail in that, then I really have to lose that title. Florenz Ziegfeld had that title. So they're big shoes to fill, and I take it
Who
very
was that?
seriously.
Sorry, who was that?
Ziegfeld created a thing called the Ziegfeld Follies, which really recreated burlesque variety and made it into a Broadway phenomenon. And he was an enormously successful producer back in the 20s and early 30s. And, he was a real, he started out, he picked up a strong guy and took him to the World's Fair in Chicago and worked out, he goes, actually, if I find this kind of talent, I can do something, I can really attract a lot of people to it. And so he's a big inspiration. But then, growing up and you see Cirque du Soleil for the first time, it's like when you're into the circus, that's life-changing. You just go in and you say, how is this possible?
Even if you're not into the circus, it's pretty life-changing. I mean, it's like,
yeah, it's
whoa.
Amazing. And when I first saw Mystere, like 25 years ago or whatever it was, I was like, oh man, I have to work with this company. And I had to fight to work with that company, and was so proud that my company in Australia got to be the promoter of Cirque du Soleil.
So that when you say you worked with Cirque, you were like a promoting arm for them?
Yeah, I did Australia and New Zealand. And, we toured Kidam in Australia. We did like 1 million tickets. This is in a place with about 22 million people. So, and the average ticket price, it was $100 million tour. It was the biggest thing they'd ever seen. And it was really fun, but such a beautiful show, People just loved it. So, yeah, I got to work with them. But then I also worked with, the Royal Ballet, the English National Ballet. We did, plays, the Sydney Theatre Company. We launched a show called Tap Dogs that went around the world. We launched a show called Puppetry of the Penis, which was an enormous hit in Australia, and then went on to play off-Broadway for a year and a half.
Well, Russ, before we move on from that, you've introduced something that I wanted to talk about, and I want to get back to your story about how you ended up in Vegas, but you can't just mention Puppetry of the Penis and not talk about our almost partnership there, whereby you convinced me, and I was just desperate to bring you to downtown to do something. This was probably 7 years ago. You convinced me to submit an application to the Gaming Control Board to try to get Puppetry of the Penis in a hotel and casino, which would be at the Plaza, and at the time, and still is, forbidden to have nudity in a casino. So nobody wanted to touch it, right?
I can't believe that nobody wanted to touch that, because my understanding was that it was female nudity that was forbidden. It wasn't male nudity. And my other understanding is that the regulations have changed a little now, and that it's more about, you've got to, self-regulate, that sort of stuff. But in any case, yeah, it was a pity it didn't happen, because the thing is, people think, oh, is this some sort of sex thing or whatever? It's not. It's just the silliest show you've ever seen. It's the merest excuse of a show. Guys make shapes out of their penis and their testicles. Like, it's ridiculous. It's just like something, your 4-year-old son does. And except these guys are grown adults.
Right.
And I made great friendships, and I actually toured that show around America. And that's how I learned America, because this show costs nothing to produce, right? Like, it's 2 naked guys on stage, a couple of spotlights, a couple of microphones, no costumes. And so I just went, we played like at the Union Square Theater in San Francisco for like 6 months. We played LA at I think it was the Coronet Theater. We played there for like a year. Like, it just went around everywhere. People loved it.
Well, that went viral after it was on the Stern Show, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
We did that, and we also did. What was the famous guy who does the garage? Jay Leno. We did Jay Leno, but the thing we did was HBO's Real Sex, which was this kind of late night show. And you'd mention the show and everybody go, oh yeah, I saw that on Real Sex, and you're like, it was funny. You go, I didn't even know what the show was, but people everywhere watched that show.
Anyway, Ross, just to close the loop on that, I think you know this, we actually were very interested to do that with you. And so we submitted the application to the Gaming Control Board, and our lawyer told me that they laughed me out of the first hearing, and it was a hard no off the bat.
Well,
so it never came to be. But you're not involved in the version of it now on Industrial, are you?
No. no, we parted ways with Penis, but you know, I'm glad to see that it's still getting an airing, and I'm sorry they got a hard no because, you know, okay, that's enough.
Well, how did you end up in Vegas?
Well, actually, I mean, our first game they're trying to get puppetry on, and then we did a Russian clown show called Slava's Snow Show, which we produced off Broadway for 2.5 years, and I was trying to get Slava to Vegas, and so I was coming down all the time, and then finally, when I produced Absinthe in New York in 2006, I got a meeting first with Caesars, who said no, and then a second meeting with Rob Goldstein from the Venetian, and he was more interested, and he said okay, and he toured me around the property, and he said, look, I've got this space here, and he introduced me to a young guy called Jason Gastworth, who was the leasing guy for that place, and he said, listen, talk to Jason, who's now the president of entertainment at Caesars, and we tried to get the show on. We couldn't make it work. And finally, in 2008, I did a deal with Jeff Sofa to bring Absinthe to the Fontainebleau. And given that we'd gone totally bankrupt in New York when the financial crisis hit, that totally saved my ass and allowed me to get through and pay all our bills and get down to Vegas. And we were building the whole thing. And every time I'd fly here, I'd look at the cranes when I'd land and go, oh my God, they're still moving. And then finally I arrived one day and I spoke to, it was Mark Lefevre, who was the CFO. And I said, Mark, it looks like the cranes aren't moving. And he said, yeah, we're done. And that project didn't go ahead. And so Absinthe, which was due to open in the Fontainebleau in 2009, was cancelled.
Well, you know, one man's loss is another man's win. And I'm sorry that you didn't get to go into Fontainebleau, but it worked out good for us because we got to buy all the furniture and carpet and tile out of there, which was the basis for our remodel in 2010 over here at the Plaza.
Well, it was all the best quality. It was beautiful, and that's why the Plaza is such a beautiful property today. And you know, the great thing out of that was I ended up meeting Gary Slesner, the president of Caesars Palace, and Jason and all the team over there, and they just said, look, you know, let's give this a go. And, you know, Tommy Jenkins was the COO of the company, and he hated it. He said, look, I remember he said to me, look, I'd throw you off my property with all your junk, you and your carny friends, but I'm not going to waste my breath because you'll be broke in 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And then, you know, took another chuff on his Marley Red and then, you know, flicked it at me and walked off. And, you know, Gary said, well, I'm not so sure you're right there, Tom. But anyway,
he turned out to be wrong.
But he's not often wrong. He's had a few hits at Tom Jenkins, but you know, he's done okay with Gordon Ramsay. But anyway, we ended up becoming great friends, and he's a big fan of the show. So
that's how Absinthe opened up at Caesars. And what year was that? What year was that?
That was 2011. We opened April Fool's Day 2011.
So I have no idea why I did this, but around that time, maybe 2012, 2011. My mother was visiting from London, and I didn't know what to do with her, so we decided to book a show, and I had never seen Absinthe. I didn't have a relationship with you. We went to see Absinthe, and I had no idea what it was going to be about. And about 10 minutes into it, I started thinking, oh, my God, I brought my mother to something that she's definitely not going to be enjoying. But and interesting enough, some people did walk out, but my mother enjoyed it. Now, is this something that I think I've talked to you or someone else about it, but on a nightly basis, you see a couple of people that will leave?
Yeah, not now because the tickets are so expensive. But
but that was kind of the thing that you were like, that's the sign of a good show.
Well, you know, and things have changed since then. You know, that's 10 years ago now. And, you know, like there's no excuse for not knowing what a show's about in 2020. You know, like you could do a little Goog and, you know, and it shows you exactly what's going on there. So, you know, back then, yes, you know, there was more people would have a reaction to it. We still get people who it's not necessary for them. And I like to say it's not necessarily for everybody, right?
Of course.
Like,
that's anything in life.
as is anything in life. And you know what? When we're operating properly, nearly 1 million people a week come to Vegas, and I don't need to sell that many tickets. I sell out about 9,000 tickets, and that's fine. I don't need all 1 million. I don't need all 1 million of them. I only need 9,000, and there's plenty of people who want to come.
Well, and aren't you the only show in Las Vegas ever to successfully run 7 days a week, 2 shows a day?
Yeah, we do it. We're actually, when we close, we're actually doing 3 shows on Saturday. So yeah, we were doing 15 shows a week, seven days a week, and it's an enormous employer. It's an enormous brand for Vegas. It's specific. It's only in Vegas. If you want to see Absinthe, you have to come to Vegas to see it. And it just shows that if you work hard and you have a new idea, you can build it in Vegas and build a new brand and build a following, which is exactly what Cirque did. And they were an inspiration to us, and that's what we choose to do here.
So the show is I love the show. I've seen that one. I've seen Absinthe and Opium. I haven't seen Atomic Saloon yet, but I can't wait to go when it opens again. But so it's compiled of these different variety shows sort of thing. Do you come up with these acts, or do you have auditions constantly of like what is the most bizarre thing happening right now?
Yeah, like I travel the world looking for unusual things. My favorite thing is when I find what I call an unusualist, which is somebody who does something that's not a circus category, like hula hoop or juggler. Like when you find an unusualist, that's one of the great days.
Like the guy who steps into the tennis racket.
Well, yeah, like Captain Frodo is. I first worked with Captain Frodo like over 20 years ago. We've known each other that long, and to my mind, he is one of the greatest in the world. He really is amazing because it's a contortion act and it's a strength act, but ultimately it's a comedy act, and that's where I fall. That's where I love it so much, because it's just such a beautiful thing to watch people watch him perform, and that's where in our venue you can be looking at the artists on stage. But a lot of the time, you're watching someone like your mother, Jonathan. You're watching her reaction to what's happening on stage and seeing how she responds to Captain Frodo or the Gazillionaire or David Omer or, the Bubble Act or whatever it is. And that's also part of the delight, is that we're all in this together.
It is. But the creative process, for something like the Gazillionaire, is that you, or is that a group of you sitting around talking about it? And how many different Gazillionaires are there? I mean, I think I can only tell the difference between maybe 2, but I'm guessing there's been a lot more than that in the 11 years.
There's definitely only one Gazillionaire. I don't know what you're talking about. There's only one Gazillionaire, and he came up with everything. And when the whole idea was his, he financed it, and I just. Behind us all, Jonathan, behind all of us, there is a Gazillionaire somewhere, I expect.
Perfect.
Are you able to find any of the talent like online through some of these like viral videos or TikToks or anything like that? Or is this something that you have to kind of, you and your team actually see on the ground?
Well, I have a rule that, I see everything live before we hire. So we obviously the sharing of videos and acts and ideas is enormous with what we can do through the internet now. But ultimately, I've been to Ethiopia, I've been to Russia, I've been to China, I've been to Japan, I've been everywhere in search of great talent.
What does an average week look like for you? Are you in rehearsal when it's not during the pandemic? Is it rehearsals and then creating new content?
Most of my work surrounds the creation of the show and the creation of new ideas for the business. So, it will be meeting with people like Jonathan to talk about opportunities downtown, but equally it will be meeting with artists to talk about ideas for new acts. It'll be attending a rehearsal, it'll be attending auditions. There's just it really our whole business rests on our creativity, and we cannot stop. You know, like if you see Absinthe today, it is very difficult. It's very different to what it was, 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because we never stop iterating on the creation of the whole event.
Except for the tap dancers, who are still some of my favorites.
Well, yeah, and even then we talk about new ideas, the tap dancers originally started with us in Vegas Nocturne in 2014 at the
Right.
Cosmopolitan.
Right.
And, and they were instant hit, instant sensation. And Sean and John are just, again, two of the greatest, that take you straight back to the foundation of television tap dance, the Nicholas Brothers, two of my favorite artists in the world.
So Ross, let me ask you a serious question here. I've been in Vegas almost 14 years. Going to a show, for me, even back in the day, whether it was back in 2005 or 6, or Mystère, going to a show became sort of a synonymous thing with Las Vegas. You had to do it. And then, of course, you've come in and revolutionized it, and I call you revolutionary because you really have changed the show landscape in Las Vegas, much to much success. But why have shows, in your opinion, never worked downtown? Why has downtown always struggled to either find shows or keep shows?
Well, I think that's because a lot of the market that exists in Vegas for shows initially goes to the Strip. And I suspect if you look at the predominant activity that people who come downtown really focus on, I'd say gaming is probably higher downtown as their first priority than food, beverage, entertainment, nightclubs. And as you innovate and as Circa innovate, we're going to see more and more people coming down. And I think the game changer is going to be, not only is Elon Musk going to take us to Mars, he's also going to take us downtown. And, that's an incredible thing. I think when this boring company plug a tunnel downtown to, the Plaza forecourt, you're going to see people
I think you just announced one of our big announcements. You just revealed that we will have a boring tunnel station here at the Plaza, so thank you.
Well, you hadn't told me that, but I mean, it's a great idea. You'd have to be brainless not to do it. And it means, if you want a bit of fun and you're staying at the Wynn, you're going to jump in a Tesla, and a minute and a half later, you're going to be at the Plaza where all the action is.
Have you had an opportunity to go down in the tunnels that are there today?
Look, I haven't. I've seen some video of it. I saw a casino exec ride in it.
I'll text you now.
And his phone shot out of his hand. The thing took off it's so fast.
Wow.
He was like videoing it and it went boom and he was like, whoa.
Wow.
Well, when you come to town, let's go take a walk through the tunnels. They're pretty cool.
I think that's going to be a game changer for downtown. It's going to open up. It's going to mean that you can get anywhere in a minute and a half, and it's going to be seamless. So I think we should be talking about shows now, and we should be talking about development now. We bought property. We bought property on Fremont Street, not the fancy end of Fremont Street that you hang out at, but
come on.
Down the gritty end, the real end of Fremont Street.
I know where you are.
I know you've been to some of our parties down there, and we're deep in discussions to open a cocktail bar down there, and I love staying there. I love being downtown.
But it is interesting because, like you said, okay, so maybe downtown's got more of a gaming angle, but over the last 5 years, it's certainly evolved. We've seen a lot more people coming down here for better dining, better pool experiences, better hotel rooms. It's just the one thing that hasn't stuck is the shows, and some people think that the reason for that is because you're competing against a lot of free entertainment on the Fremont Street experience. So
no, you don't compete against that. That's an attraction.
No, I'm saying that the shows that would be out that are here today would have struggled to necessarily fill in, competing for people's mindsets, and that they can walk down Fremont Street, look at the neon, look at the lights, have a drink, listen to music. Again, all pre-pandemic, of course, but that's the reason why shows haven't been able to work. Because if you look at it, Golden Nugget has 2,400 rooms. They should have a showroom. I mean, they should have a venue when you look at what the Strip has. So it's just not caught on yet. But I'm glad to hear you're starting to think about it and thinking that it could start to make sense.
We've talked about it for years. You and I have talked about it. I think it's when we do it, we've just got to go, now is the time to do it. And I think it needs to be part of a total offer that says to somebody who wants to go to a show, this is the sort of place you're going to want to come. And, and the show has to be right. And I think we need to keep, as show producers, I need to innovate. I've got to come up with a concept that, is different from what's up there.
And how do you do that?
Well, it's just like Ryan Doherty did. There's lots of great cocktail bars up there, but there's nothing like Commonwealth, or there's nothing like, what's his thing called? The Pussy Club.
Disco Pussy.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Disco Pussy. So there is a market who's going to look at that and say, yeah, that's where we want to go. And so we've got to innovate with some new ideas down there. And I think it's going to keep happening. I just think it's going to keep happening. I did an interview with the Wall Street Journal the other day, and she was staying at the Golden Nugget. And I said, oh, well, make sure you go down and check out Publicus and just do the whole of, Fremont Street.
Was that the first time you started spending more time down here?
Yeah, I first stayed at the Bunkhouse Airstream Park. That was the first time I stayed down there, but I already knew you. I think we'd already talked about doing something at the Plaza. And then you and I, after that, talked about building the Spiegelworld Casino.
We did. And for anyone that doesn't know, that was going to be at the Las Vegas Club prior to us selling it to Circa.
Yeah, which makes me very sad. It would have been incredible, but, how could you argue against the development that's Circa? What a great thing for downtown,
So you think a Spiegelworld hotel makes more sense than an Absinthe hotel?
Not necessarily.
I mean, what else could you do with the Absinthe brand? It's such a great brand at this point.
Well, it's a great brand, but equally it's a great brand because it's attached to a great show. And because the show is a great show because it's differentiated from everything. So what would an Absinthe hotel look like? I don't know if anybody would want to stay there. You go there with your mother and she'd,
Well, maybe not my mother, but I think there's lots of people that would want to live stay there.
The Absinthe Hotel is like that place, the Artisan, have you ever been there?
Oh yeah.
It's kind of crazy. That kind of already exists. But, no, I think, the Spiegelworld brand means it means more than Absinthe now with Atomic Saloon and with Opium and with our new disco show. When our new disco show launches, people are going to go crazy.
What is this new disco show? Give us a little insight.
Well, it's kind of like, we're working with Nile Rodgers, who's the music director, and Stephen Hoggett, who's the choreographer from Harry Potter on the West End and Broadway, an incredible creative team. And we're kind of creating the history of disco, but through the eyes of a guy called David Mancuso, who created a thing called The Loft. And this is years before Studio 54, but this guy kind of invented, contemporary EDM. He wanted to extend the beat, the break beat on his record, this big record they broke, Soul Mancuso. So he brought down another record player so he could have two copies of the same record playing. So he would play the same beat for hours in his club, which went forever. And, it's just an incredible story, but it's a comedy, but, there's disco moves. I mean, and it's just such an era of fun. And I believe coming out of this period where we've had such a tough year, it's going to be the roaring 20s and people are going to want to go out and just have fun.
I think you're absolutely right. People are just going to want to get into a space and have fun, enjoy themselves and get out of their homes and spend money, let loose. And that will lead to the roaring 20s. It only makes sense.
I think it's true. And, look, when we relaunched Absinthe after we were closed for 6-7 months, whatever it was, people just went crazy. They're just so excited to go out, and, I think Vegas is going to go crazy. I know you're investing in your Greyhound bus terminal. I read the other day, and And you're going to build a walkway across to Leachville.
Yeah, you can run across that now on your jogs.
Yeah, well, I haven't run across it yet, but I think people are going to move into Leachville soon, and then you've got this new Resorts World thing. You've got Elon Musk with his tube, and you've got a new convention center. And all sorts of people are showing up. New players. They're even building a new resort next to that M Resort. I read
that was on the news yesterday as well. Yes. Well, let's lock in a location for this disco concept so we can get going have it ready for the Roaring 20s. I think it'll be a little bit towards end of the summer, at least for sort of mass travel, and then you start getting conventions back. But where we were, and I'm sure it was the same for you, at least September, October time, it was decent. It was people still were having a good time getting out, and it's only now that it's with the new regulation and obviously a slower time of year that it's truly fallen off the face of the earth. But up until now, it's been okay, even in the middle of a pandemic. So just imagine what's going to happen when this vaccine's out and everybody lets loose.
I think it's going to be fantastic. I think people are going to be so excited about the whole thing, and I think Vegas is just going to roar. It's going to roar. It's the place you want to go. It's the world. It's the best spot for a party in the world.
It is, and that's coming back. Well, thank you, Ross, for your time. Thank you for sharing some of this with us. I know it's a difficult time. I know you're busy, but we very much appreciate your insight. And personally, I appreciate your friendship, but I also appreciate your shows, because when people come to town, that's where we go. So thank you for bringing that to Vegas, and looking forward to getting back out there when we can start traveling again. When are you next in Vegas?
As soon as Christmas is over, I'm coming down, and I'm going to be there until we get all our shows back up. So really excited, and we've got a lot of big announcements coming in the new year. So it's going to be a great 2020.
We're very excited for it. Thank you so much for joining us on the corner of Main Street. You can stay up to date on all the shows at Spiegelworld.com. We'll be back again soon, but in the meantime, follow us on social. On Twitter and Instagram, it's @PlazaPod. And on Facebook, find us @PlazaPodcast. Or you can go right to the top and tweet Jonathan, @JonathanJossel. We'll see you next time from right here on the corner of Main Street.